Yep.
Hey, Amanda, I'm kind of out of pocket this morning, so if you could help us with the roll call, I would appreciate that.
Oh, sure. Let's see. So Renee is here. Ed is here. Do we have Commissioner Mejia? Court Commissioner Downing?
Actually, if you don't mind, for the point of order, we haven't actually called the order yet, so.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we got to call order.
We do have
Is
enough.
is there a printed agenda? Like, mine can't seem to upload. That's weird.
Okay, so I just heard that we do have a quorum, so I call to order this March 1st meeting of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Amanda, if you could help us with the roll call this morning.
Sure, yeah, so we have both the chair and vice chair here, Renee Sinclair and Ed Kunkel. I don't think we have Commissioner Mejia unless I missed her come in. And I don't believe I see Court Commissioner Downing. Councilmember Parsley from Olympia. Is she here? Councilmember Kathy? No. Councilmember Richardson, you're here, great. Councilmember Clam,
I'm here.
great. And Councilmember Purcell from Bucota.
Good morning. My name's Kirsten Presley. I'm actually here on behalf of Bucota as counsel.
Oh, welcome. Great, thank you. And I see Greg Schoenbachler. I see Richard Moon.
Yep.
Delroy Cox is here. Chad Sutter's here.
Present.
I believe David Nightingale is traveling. And Laura Busby's here. And Jeff, I'll let you do staff and guests.
Is Jeff with us?
Jeff, you're muted.
Yeah.
Oh, rookie mistake, I know.
Yeah,
Okay. and I did
we've
say
all done it. Yeah, we've all done it.
Walker. Okay, I'm gonna go down here. So in the room at Public Works, we have Amanda Romero. And I think Ayla's there as well, am I correct?
Yes.
I was looking over the list here. We have Art Starring. Chris Hawkins. Dean Banning. Patrick Soderberg. Rob Pudner. Scott Keith. And Susan Isham. Additionally, other presenters, we have Corey Carlton. That's another one. Also from Public Works, Danielle Winsky. Jennifer Johnson. Let's see if his name just keeps jumping all over the place. So
Kylie Graber, also from Thurston County Public Health and Social Services.
thank you, Chris. Am I missing anybody else as far as Thurston County goes?
For Post is also here on behalf of Master Recycler Composter.
Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, Jennifer. And then guests. Let's see, we have Ron Jones.
Thank you, Jeff. Ron Jones, City of Olympia staff. Sorry I joined late.
Steve Gilmore.
Hi, Steve Gilmore with Republic Services.
If I left anybody out? Okay,
Thanks, Amanda and Jeff, for helping out with that this morning. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from February 1. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those? And if so, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 1.
So moved.
Thank you. Richard, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thanks, Ed. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And those opposed, please say nay. The minutes are approved as written, and with that, I would entertain a motion to approve today's agenda unless there are any changes.
Move to approve the agenda as written.
Thanks, Ed. Do we have a second?
A second.
Very good, thank you. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And those opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, the minutes, yes, the agenda for today has been approved. Amanda and Jeff, do we have any public comment?
Not that I've received.
Okay, thank you for that. And old business is the same? No old business? The next thing on our agenda is a capital facilities project update, and I heard that Susan is with us. So Susan, if you want to go ahead and give that presentation.
Okay. All right, great. It's good to see everyone again. Here's the first slide that gives you just an overview of all the things that we're doing and the budgets. Some of the dates might have shifted a little bit later, and we will talk about that as we get into the individual slides. So next slide, please. Jeff, did you want to talk about this one?
certainly. I'll go ahead and get an overview of this. So data system replacement and upgrade project. So this is a little background of what this is all about. SCADA is a supervisory control and data acquisition system. What these do is they allow you to monitor and control various functions in a facility. So for us, it helps us to monitoring pumps, valves, flow rates, meters, monitor volumes of leachate going out, et cetera. There's a lot of different systems that we have here in our Old Coast landfill. And the system that we had installed back a long time ago is basically failing. So this project is basically doing an overhaul of all of the SCADA system and upgrading that to allow us to remotely monitor and control various systems from our leachate, our stormwater management, our landfill gas and gas condensate, and our sewerage from a central point, as well as receive alarms from various sensors, remotely. So we actually are getting down to the very end of this project. We had a final walkthrough back in February, which developed a punch list. We are almost complete with that punch list, and we'll shortly be sending out to the contractor a notice of substantial completion and wrapping this project up in the very near future. So good news on that. We're very excited to be wrapping that up, and it's going to provide a lot of additional functionality for our operations techs that do this work. Any questions related to that? I know we've been talking about it for quite a while, but it's exciting for us. Next slide. The flare system project has also been going more or less concurrently with the SCADA programming and updates. So once again, the original flares that basically burn off the landfill gas, so we don't emit the methane out into the atmosphere. The two existing flares that were put in 23 years ago were just huge. They're gigantic. If you've ever been out there and seen them, they're very large. And at this point, we're not generating nearly as much methane as when we first closed the landfill. So it was not functioning very well. So we're actually downsizing the flares to much smaller to handle this lower quantity of gas. There's been delays in this particular project initially for it was the supply chain that held us up for quite some time. Then this last fall and winter, there were some items that were not meeting the specifications. So we had to have them make some revisions. Additionally, we're having to do some tweaking of our landfill gas field from our side to make sure that we have the most appropriate quantity of methane in the gas that's going to the flares so it can run efficiently. So we're doing some system tweaking, and we expect to have, and then once that's done, the flares that are in place, these new flares, need to operate for a 1 month period without issue, and then basically we'll sign off on it and be ready to go. So we anticipate that this should be completed by end of the second quarter. Any questions there? If not, next slide, please.
Okay, so this project is going on along with the SCADA and Flare, and there is some interconnection, especially with SCADA, because we're upgrading the pumps and ponds, a lot of them at the Wark. We've got, as Jeff alluded to, stormwater, leachate, and condensate pumps. The original project was going to encompass all of these different system pumps at the same time, but due to some budget constraints with COVID and all the things going on there, we were able to award the condensate and the leachate pumps in the original contract. So that's what's going on right now. We just got the stormwater bids back, and that contract was awarded in January. So we have the same contractor. We have Roglins for both. They were the low bid on both projects. So we are doing those projects and trying to dovetail them so they'll finish at the end of 2023. So are there any questions on that?
Just one quick question from me. I'm just wondering about overall stormwater pumping capacity. Is that essentially the same as before, or has it been increased or decreased? Is there any change in that?
I don't believe the capacity of the new pumps will necessarily be greater, but I can definitely check into that to make sure.
And generally speaking, we're replacing pumps with pumps of similar capacity and you know, pretty much like to like, but just that we were getting over time continuing to have pumps fail. So it's just a matter of getting, you know, new refreshed pumps in there that will last longer. And then so it's a substantively much larger capacity on the stormwater, but just updating and having pumps that will last.
Got it. Thanks.
Yes.
I had a quick question about where the water is flowing into. And so I know you are doing a lot of work on the pumps and the ponds, but then have we looked at the treatment facilities for where all this water is flowing into, or how exactly is that being managed?
Well, as far as stormwater, it goes into a large surface impoundment. We have and basically, and then it more or less just infiltrates. So the stormwater is clean, so it isn't really an issue. As far as the wastewater, such as the landfill gas condensate, the actual leachate itself coming out of the landfill, as well as our sewerage, we have facilities here. They are all combined and they're taken and they are pumped a lot. So, and we obviously have an agreement with lot to do that. So they're handled in a POTW, public, treatment work. So.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Jeff, I don't know whether anybody else, but I have a real difficult time hearing you. I hear everybody else clear, but not you.
How about everybody else? Can you hear me?
Not that well.
Yeah, you're a little
Yeah.
muffled.
Yeah.
Not very well.
Okay, well, it's good to know. Let me see if.
Thanks for bringing that up, Delroy.
Changed my microphone. Is that better?
I didn't know whether it was just me or whether it was everybody.
Yeah, it's a
But-
little muddled.
How about now? I changed.
That
my
is much better. Thank you.
Better.
Jeff.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, thank you for letting me know.
Great. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the security cameras at the Wark, we're upgrading those to get better definition, and we were adding a few, especially near the dog park. And at this point, they are in transit. So this is very exciting. It's taken about 3 months due to supply chain issues. And then we will be doing the installation, and that'll take a little bit of time as well. There's some new software, especially new cameras at the Hazo House. So this is all good. Any questions about that? Okay, next slide, please. All right, back to you, Jeff.
As you know, back in January, we'll only back up a little bit. So back in 2018, we had a solid waste facility condition assessment that looked at all of our facilities here, the solid waste facilities, and it was recommended that the work really needed some improvements. A lot of it having to do with many of the facilities being, buildings, scale houses installed over the old closed landfill, which of course settles over time. So that's created a lot of additional maintenance and other issues related to that. So a study was done by HDR it was done 2019 that looked at, it came out in 2021 that looked at various options for reconfiguring the work to, for a number of reasons. One was to hopefully move some of our facilities off of the old closed landfill, as well as to improve safety, try to reduce commercial and self-haul interactions, because right now they all come in the same road, across the same scales, and just trying to help improve safety that way. So in that study, there was 4 options that were looked at, 2 of which were moved forward, which the SWAC heard of in 2021. And then, as you know, in our January meeting, Dean gave a presentation with a recommendation that option D, I have to go back, which is basically expanding the transfer station building itself to allow for the self-haul to tip in this expanded area, moving our scales for the public self-haul down in the vicinity of Hazo House, as well as the organics collection area down in that lower area as well, which is not over old closed landfill. And with the staff recommending the option D, which the SWAC passed a motion in January, recommending to the Board of County Commissioners that we move forward with the pre-design and design along with them. The idea being to follow the option D option. Thought that was redundant. So just the newest piece on that is we have a briefing for the Board of County Commissioners coming up March 22nd, basically bringing forth the SWAC's recommendation and filling in the commissioners on what that is and what that would look like. And hopefully we're looking to move forward with the pre-design and then ultimately after that into the full design mode. So that's where we're at on that. Any questions related to that? If not, next slide, please.
Okay, so we've talked about this a bit, but we are looking at putting a transfer station in the South County. So our major Dropbox upgrades are on hold right now while we're looking at that option. As you know, capacity at both sites has grown as population has increased, with Rainier really getting to a max place. So that is something we're investigating, and that'll be talked about more in a couple slides, but security camera upgrades for both of them are in process. Rochester has needed a complete replace and upgrade because the cameras out there are not very good. I don't know that most of them work. So that actually got an update from our IT person, and he said that those are on order, I believe. And we have done a walkthrough and had a quote. And then Rainier, we have it out for quote right now. We have a county standard for security cameras. So we have to work through that particular supplier to get that going. And then we were looking at, in the original plan for the upgrades for both sites, the staff conditions were not where we'd like them to be. So we were going to have, because we're not doing the major upgrades, we're doing portable break rooms for both sites. So if we ever do upgrades there, we can move those somewhere else. And actually got those out to bid last week, and hoping to get some good bids on those. So.
Susan, remind me, has a site been identified for the potential transfer station?
No, but I don't want to steal Jeff's thunder.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's the next slide, actually.
Okay, all right.
All right, next slide.
There we go. So yes, so we went to the Board of Commissioners in January. We had a briefing based on, and this is also following a recommendation or a motion that was passed from the SWAC last, I think it was October or November, I forget exactly, recommending that we move forward with the siting study. The board concurred to go ahead and move forward with that siting study. HDR is just, we had a project kickoff, I believe, about a week and a half ago. So they are just getting rolling, and they'll be looking at, properties above a certain size. There's a minimum size that would be to effectively do a transfer station. The absolute minimum would be 10 acres. Slightly larger, 12 to 15 would be more ideal. So they'll start using GIS and identifying properties, and ultimately kind of whittle it down to a top 4 and put them against some analysis and move forward from there. But that report, that work should be near the end of May or mid-June-ish, be the time frame to get that. So yeah, so really it's just getting started. So nothing's been identified at this point.
So Jeff, neither the Rainier nor the Rochester site meet those size requirements?
Now they're both about 5 acres.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, they're very small and very bound in.
Yeah. Okay.
That being said, Rainier has some potential. I mean, there is adjacent property that the county owns, which is the Rainier Pit that Public Works uses, for storage of materials and equipment. That might have some possibility to expand sideways. It would require a whole lot of fill to bring it up to that grade of the other facility, but it's something that's that will be looked at.
Thank you for that.
Any others related to this one? If not, next slide. And I'll go ahead and do this one as well. So in our capital improvement plan is we have an approval to move forward with purchasing of a new compactor for the Waste and Recovery Center. The other existing compactor, has had occasion some probably more downtime than we'd care for. So we'd be looking to purchase and install a new compactor to give us, again, more reliable service. That being said, we would continue, once we do that, we would continue to hold on to the one that would be removed and integrate that into this work reconfiguration project. So as we expand the transfer station building out, we want to find a location where we could have that. So we would have 2 compactors on site, which would provide a level of redundancy, which would be desirable. So with one is down either unexpectedly or down for maintenance, we have a second one that could, so you'd always have one that's operating, or likewise way out in the future, if the volume of waste continues to expand here, we would have the potential of being able to send out compact in both at the same time to move out materials if that gets to that situation. So right now we're working on getting the solicitation for bids prepared. I get a bid packet, and that would go out for bid hopefully in the next couple of months. And then once we have that in, from what we've heard, once bids are received, that the estimate we've heard is 7 to 9 months, from award to being able to get that. So we're looking, by the time we get that through, it'll probably be, it would probably be in the next spring before it would actually potentially be installed. But it really depends on, if they're busy, if there's a build time available with the contractor. So, but we're moving forward with that. Any questions? Okay. Is that the last slide, or is there another? That's it.
Any questions for Jeff or Susan? I'm not seeing any hands. That was a great update. Thank you to both of you for that. Our next item on the agenda is the Recycling and Waste Reduction Program presentation. And I think I saw Scott with us earlier. Scott, are you ready?
I am ready. Let me
Perfect.
share my screen. Right. Is everybody seeing the slide okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Perfect. Well, I am excited to join you all for the first time and give you all an update on the accomplishments of 2022. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for them. But we'll give you a quick update first, and I don't want to steal too much of Jeff's thunder because he said he wanted to introduce Danielle, but you'll see, in addition to me, a new face on the team who's Danielle Winsky, and she just joined us on February 16th. She brings a ton of great experience and will be responsible for our county government and commercial programs. And then that last vacant slot, we hope to fill that EN01 slot sometime this year. So we'll be, once we get Danielle and my other new employees settled, we'll start working on that last slot. And then before we get into it, I did want to share that, Rob would humbly tell you that it was a team effort in 2022, but, I wanted to take this time to thank him for his great work last year and helping to keep the program moving forward. So, a lot of the stuff I'll be talking about will be, things he did for the team. First off is the, in the residential, youth, and commercial and in-house programs, Rob designed, updated, and coordinated the distribution of a countywide recycling guide mailer, which went out to about 105,000 households. The team also supported the security load campaign that will continue on in 2023, and Dean will talk about in a little bit. We helped support the South County Transfer Station Study outreach campaign. And in that campaign, we ended up receiving about direct input from more than 400 people with some in-person and online surveys that occurred with HDR. A direct mailer went out to more than 26,000 people. There was a digital ad that ran last year in the Olympian that received over 21,000 views. And, so these tactics, along with the stakeholder briefings and virtual public meeting, helped engage the community in the conversation about a potential new transfer station in South Thurston County, and as a way to meet the growing demand on the current solid waste facility. We also had more than 8,000 copies of the biannual Talking Trash newsletter distributed in 134 classrooms here in the county. And the whole team did a lot of great work refreshing the lid decals and event signage on our Clearstream loaner bins for when those go out, making sure that we're keeping things in the right bins. On the resource development and facility support side, the Where Do I Take My Tool proved itself to be a valuable tool in 2022. To date, that tool has received 47,661 material views with almost 29,000 user sessions with about 24,000 unique users coming to that search tool. And then in Q4, we saw about 6,700 material views And that was a 10% increase from quarter 3. And we had a 13% increase in user sessions and a 14% increase in unique visitors, all over quarter 3. So we're excited that the tool is getting used and, you know, helping people out in the community. Rob did a great job creating signage for the drop-off facilities to close the cardboard recycling and prevent materials from getting abandoned on the ground. And he also designed, ordered, and installed magnetic anti-contamination signs for the plastic bins at the wharf, which just helps people, you know, when they show up and keep putting things in the right bins. He did a great job bringing awareness to the paint care program at Hazard House. He worked on the signage, and he's been putting information in the hauler billing inserts as well to bring awareness to that program. And last but not least, Rob did a great job coordinating meetings with the haulers and helping to strengthen our partnership with them. So now I'm going to turn it over to Corey so she can give you an update on the MRC program.
Great. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Corey Carlton. I'm the Master Recycler Composter, as well as the WCU Extension Master Gardener Volunteer Coordinator. And so these next slides directly relate to the outcomes of our both groups. Specifically, for today, we're mostly going to focus on the Master Recycler Composters. The acronym that we use for them is MRC. But our first slide here that you can see is that last year in 2022, we managed, between myself and our program assistant, Jennifer Post, we managed 195 Master Recycler Composter and Master Gardener volunteers. MRC volunteers gave just over 3,500 hours, and MG volunteers gave over 13,000 for a total of 17,000 hours. I feel like this last year, we're finally starting to make strides back to where we were pre-pandemic. In 2019, we had 20,000 hours between both groups. And last year in 2021, we had 12,000. So if you look at, we went 20,000 down to 12. And now we're getting back up to 17. So there is a lot of outreach as events are happening throughout the county. Our volunteers are definitely taking advantage of that and getting back into the routine of helping out. We did lose 18 volunteers from 2021 to 2022, but that being said, we also increased our number of volunteers in this last training, which is why there is a necessity to keep on training each year, a new group. So in 2021, we had 11 trainees in our training group, and this last year in 2022, you can see that we had 29 graduates. So we did increase from 11 to 29 just in 1 year. And our average is between 15 to 20 volunteers that we train as Master Recycler Composters each year. Next slide.
Those are great numbers, by the way.
Yeah, that's great stuff right there. That's great. And all
Thanks.
the volunteers, yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Actually, I'll just say on behalf of them, again, I just make sure that they have the opportunities, but they're the ones that actually are the ones out there doing the great work. So our accomplishments, we meet on a monthly basis, what we call our cafes. Most of the time they're on Zoom. During the pandemic, we transitioned them over to Zoom, but we are starting to do some in-person ones as well. We have our kickoff coming up next week, which will announce, kind of go over the whole expectations about the program for this year, what coming up events are happening, and then kind of get them excited about all the different volunteer opportunities. So that'll happen next Tuesday. So those are what we consider our cafes. Our continuing education opportunities, we do, because this industry changes so frequently, it is important that we continually provide opportunities for our volunteers to keep abreast about the new changes coming up. And so we provide monthly or bi-monthly, depending on what's happening, continuing education opportunities for them to learn. And so, for example, we either call in a speaker. Last year, we had Jade Monroe from the Department of Ecology talk about the Use Food Well Washington plan. So we're trying to keep them abreast again about the changes happening statewide, as well as and how they apply to us here locally. We had question and answer clinics. These are clinics either done virtually or in person. And these are an opportunity for the volunteers to answer public questions. And so we had 169 of those last year, and there was over 12,000 inquiries on at these question and answer clinics regarding waste reduction information, whether it be composting, recycling, overall waste reduction information. We also hosted 95 work parties. We have 3 demonstration gardens that we maintain. These are public spaces throughout the county. And these work parties, all of these spaces all require maintenance and ongoing care, as well as inspiration to kind of keeping the folks engaged. And so there was 95 work parties held. And then we also offered 10 workshops. These are public composting workshops where the general public can come learn about how to compost. And so we had 10 of those also, 2 online and the rest were in person, located at our demonstration gardens. Next slide. Okay, I also wanted to highlight, I haven't done this in the past, but I feel like it's important to recognize the fact that some of our volunteers have been volunteering for years or decades even. And so Joe McGee is our Master Recycler Composter of the Year. He was involved in leading composting workshops, held projects both internally and externally. He also was a Master Recycler Composter mentor, which we have to help our trainees get acclimated to the program as well as their volunteer opportunities. And then he's also a monthly cafe contributor as well. So Joe McGee had done a tremendous amount of work last year. And so we wanted to recognize him as the Master Recycler Composter Volunteer of the Year. We also recognized our years of service with volunteers meeting the 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So the Master Composter actually started back in the 80s. We merged with the Master Recycler Composter, I'm sorry, the Master Recycler program in 2011. And so in 2011, that's where we then move forward as the Master Recycler Composter program. And so both of those started. So some of these folks here that you see in the slides have been, in fact, Carla and Joan, both have been in the program for over 20 years. Next slide. Okay, so and our 2023 goals here is that we're going to continue to lead our new volunteer training. So right now I'm currently training a group of 34 new Master Gardener volunteer trainees. I typically train Master Gardeners in the spring, Master Recycler Composters in the fall, and we will offer another fall training for the Master Recycler Composters starting in September. Right now we have 215 volunteers. Just adding those 34 new Master Gardeners have now bumped us up to a total of 229 volunteers that I'm overseeing, making sure that again they meet all their benchmarks and are following the rules, as well as and making sure that they know of the volunteer opportunities. And then the other important part is that the Master Gardener program is celebrating its 50th anniversary. And so the Master Recycler Composters are going to be tag teaming on some of those anniversary celebrations in our public outreach events, which includes our first one this weekend for the Native Plant Festival, which will be jointly co-hosting a booth at this coming Saturday. As I said before, we have our 3 public demonstration gardens with our weekly work parties, and then provide waste reduction outreach as well. So we're looking forward to an exciting year. I do want to mention, Jenny is on the call right now, but I do want to acknowledge all the work that she has done also on behalf of the program. And I'd like to just publicly, again, thank her for all of her work, as well as our ongoing great relationship with the solid waste department there, specifically Rob. Last year did a phenomenal job in making sure that we were kept abreast of all the changes. So thank you with Dean on that note. Next slide.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do you ever partner with local groups? And I'm thinking specifically of the Olympia Kiwanis Club, which has 3 large gardens where they're producing vegetables primarily for the Thurston County Food Bank. I'm just thinking there's a lot of synergy here, and I'm wondering if there are some partnerships that would benefit the county.
Yep, we already in partner with them. So our Master Gardener volunteers are currently serving at Kiwanis Gardens, as well as we also have one of our demonstration garden that grows food for the food bank. And so last night was actually the food bank's growers meeting, and some of our volunteers were there so that we're all on the same page, so that we're all not growing just tomatoes at one time. So
thank you for that, because I know they need everything at the food bank, and so being coordinated is really good. Thank you for that.
Yep, we were there last night. Any other questions? Okay, so otherwise, then I'd like to move this along to Dean. Dean's going to close up our presentation with the last round of slides here.
Thank you, Corey. Good morning, everyone. Just have a couple slides here for you today. My focus is really on the direction for the education and outreach program in 2023. I'm very happy that we're near full capacity in terms of staffing, so that we are going to be able to get back to some of the work that we've done previously and even break some new ground. And basically there's 6 basic areas. I've got 2 slides each with 3 of those areas mentioned here, but firstly, general education outreach. The last couple of SWAC meetings, we've touched in different depths, I guess, on our litter program that Solid Waste now manages. But as part of that community litter program, the Ed Outreach Group will be doing basically litter prevention outreach. We don't quite know how that looks, but we're going to be brainstorming that early this year. Waste reduction and recycling. Basically, that is kind of a big push programmatically, but we're awaiting the waste characterization study results from last year and continuing into this year. And we're hoping to kind of build our waste reduction recycling efforts around the results of that waste characterization in case we need to kind of redirect some of our efforts. And kind of related to that, the compost procurement ordinance, which you'll hear about a little bit more later, that was a result of House Bill 1799. One of the requirements in Ecology's required reports is that we do public education regarding the benefits of compost and even how the county is using compost in its operations. Of course, food diversion, diverting organics from landfill is key. Third area here, litter illegal dumping and secure your load. I just submitted a grant application yesterday to Ecology, which is the next round of the community litter cleanup program funding, which would begin on the 1st of July. And we're excited about different efforts and energies that we're going to put out there to hopefully make this really county-wide. And I'm looking forward to some partnership, some better partnership with our cities, because I know there's things happening to some degree in every city and maybe looking for synergies there. And then the Secure Your Load program, if you might remember, in 2005, the state of Washington passed something called Maria's Law, which basically required all loads to be covered on the road. And so we're going to be looking at ways we can sort of implement that going forward and make it a little bit more rigorous, I guess. And am I advancing the slides?
I got it. Did it go?
You got it? Yes, thank you. Fourth area, business outreach. Planning to revive commercial waste audits, get back to those. We have staff to do that. Again, coming back to one of our core messages, food waste prevention. Encouraging composting in businesses. We have definitely the current hauler services. They do offer organics recycling at business locations, which is great. Multifamily facilities, that's definitely, we all know, an area that needs focus, and Rob and I've been kind of fairly active in that in terms of leveraging our partnership with Waste Connections. Rob's been out in the field with Waste Connections at some of these facilities and looking at ways we can improve outreach, and starting with replacing the inaccurate signs and cart stickers. Those get dated really quick. We've talked about maybe looking at, we haven't looked too far into this, but there's been some published success on small recycle bins that are provided to residents of these complexes, and how it's significantly decreased contamination. We're just talking about that. And then lastly, development review process. Somewhat debatable, I guess, but I see solid waste and recycling as the utility. I know the state of Washington does as well. But I've been working with our community development folks and trying to get a process set up where we in solid waste and even Waste Connections gets to review development plans for multifamily facilities and businesses, just so we can give input on, where waste receptacles go, where the recycling containers go. Because oftentimes solid waste is an afterthought. Everybody thinks of water and electricity and gas. And a lot of times when these multifamily facilities are constructed, it's like it's an afterthought, and oh gosh, where do we put our dumpsters? And it ends up creating operational headaches for the hauler and other problems that we could probably get worked around if we had a chance to review those plans earlier. And lastly, classroom education. I'm excited about this one. I had personal experience with just how successful these programs can be, but wanting to reestablish our presence in schools. Our messaging should, of course, be sensitive to existing standards in schools, some of the state goals that they have to meet, and sort of feathering our message around those. If you don't consider those at all, it's not likely you'll get to the classroom. Food to Flowers programs have a lot of success when they're done at certain elementary grades. So we'll be looking at that. And we haven't yet, as a team, decided on which grade level or 2 grade levels to focus on. We've got to focus our energies. We don't have unlimited staffing, but figure out what grade levels we want to target and build our classroom education around those. And moving on to the next slide, that's kind of hits the direction we're going in 2023. And if you have any planning or program related questions, you can get in touch with myself or Amanda. Any questions?
So Amanda, was council member Kathy able to join us? I haven't seen.
I believe she came in, yeah.
Okay, good. I was just thinking we should definitely get her this recording if she wasn't here, because I think she would have a particular interest in this subject area. Any questions for Scott, Corey, or Dean before we move on? That was a great update. Thank you to all 3 of you.
Looks like Richard, Greg, and Delroy all have their hands up. So
okay, let's start with Richard.
Just regarding illegal dumping of significant amounts of trash or other waste materials, I was wondering if there were any metrics on that, if that was tracked, and roughly what it costs the county to clean up those sorts of things if it is significant.
Yes, Richard, we do have that information. It's been tracked in an Excel spreadsheet. It's largely, that tracking has been built around our community litter grant funds from Ecology. But we do, at the end of each year, we do tabulate the number of illegal dumps we've cleaned up, where those locations are, just so we can see how recurring it is and how regular it is. So we know how to focus our efforts better to hopefully prevent that.
Thank you.
Greg, you are up next.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that presentation. That was great. I just wanted to make a comment that, I appreciate the viewpoint of, on multifamily housing, that waste is part of the utility system. Because we see that a lot, where it is very much an afterthought almost all the time. And there's a lot of different challenges with that from a recycling standpoint, from a waste hauler standpoint. So having that be a part of the focus in the beginning, I think can really enhance the way that these systems work and the efficacy of them and the recycling rates and so forth. And then there's also other things, that are happening around us. The bottle bill, for one, where, inadequate waste storage is creating a lot of issues, especially with like homeless population, kind of mining these dumpsters, these recycling bins and so forth, in like Oregon where they have that. And, that's proposed here in the bottle bill to do the same in Washington, which is, can create a lot of issues. And so just this kind of pre-planning is just a really, really positive thing. I'm glad to hear it.
Thanks for that, Greg. Delroy, you're next.
Yeah, I agree with the utility and following up with facilities. And I think it's even important as they start construction to kind of monitor that, because I've seen situations where they put in elaborate systems and they couldn't use them because the trucks couldn't access them. The other thing I've got is, I was wondering what, I think 3 or 4 years ago, the counties implemented a food, I can't remember what they called the program, but they were working with the different restaurants and locations to take some of that food for beneficial use. Is that program still in place, or was it a casualty to COVID?
You're probably referring to the food rescue program. I wasn't here at that time. I don't know if anyone else can speak to that.
I can't remember what we called it, but yes, that's what I was referring to.
I'll chip in here. This actually was before my time as well. However, really during COVID, it wasn't very active, and a lot of that had to be with, obviously you couldn't go out to to those facilities or to schools or et cetera. So we were just looking to get, as we got out of that recently, to kind of put more focus into that, and particularly now with that, there's even an enhanced focus on food waste, both going to the landfill as well as getting recoverable food. So now that we're almost staffed up again, because then we got delayed again because of our lack of staffing for a little while, but we'll definitely be refocusing heavily on both food waste and recoverable food. So that's definitely a priority, and it needs to be, because we actually have there's criteria in HB 1799 about specific numbers to improve that. So yeah, that'll definitely be a key focus for us.
That was a really good question, and I appreciate the update on that issue too. Thank you for that, Delroy and Jeff. Joan, you are up next.
Well, I wanted to let you know that I've been here almost the whole time. I had computer problems, but I got here about 10 minutes after. So I've heard a lot of this very good stuff. But thank you, Madam Chair, for reminding me that I was late and thinking about me. So
I'm sorry I missed you when you came in. I just really wanted you to hear this presentation because I know it matters to you.
It matters a lot to me. You and I have had a lot of conversations about it, and I want to say hooray that this is, the focus is returning and the staffing. It's really a good thing. So I'm glad. I wanted to ask 2 questions. One, we used to have the thing called Talking Trash. Is that what Trash Talk is now? And it's only going to the schools? Is that correct?
Rob, do you want to answer that question?
Sure. Trash Talk is a newsletter that we provide to 4th and 5th grade classrooms in Thurston County. Talking Trash is different. That was previously a mailed publication, and then in 2021 we turned it into a video series that we do anticipate bringing back once we're more staffed. The names are confusing, and I've always had a hard time with the two because it's the same 2 words, just in a different order.
Yeah.
So that's actually something that we've talked about, is renaming that and turning that into a competition among the students. So you can anticipate a name change in the future.
I like that. I think it's cute. I think it's a more useful reference to that phrase. I don't know.
It's useful, but having 2 things named very similarly can be very confusing.
Yeah, oh, okay.
So the video
So-
series has been really good. If you follow the county on Facebook, you've had an opportunity to see the video series, and you guys have done a really nice job with that.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
So you have these two ways of reaching out, which one, the video series is geared more toward community members in general and the whole county, and the trash talk is to students.
Yes, talking trash is to all residents. We haven't really had a focus on business, a business audience. So far, it's just residential, and the Trash Talk newsletter is for 4th and 5th grade students.
Okay, I thought I had that right, but I wasn't sure. And I wanted to encourage people and encourage parents that I've talked to over time that, you know, that they're in those grades where they have gotten it and they go, God, my child has turned into a recycler and a composter, and we can hardly do anything without getting permission from him. So it's been, yeah, so know that it's making a difference. And I just wanted to say, I was here when we started the food recovery, and that was tightly started with the food bank, and we bought a vehicle and all of that kind of stuff. So the history of that is really worth looking back on how it was done or how it was taken care of, because the waste in restaurants and catering and all of that is very, very high. So if there's some way we can, you know, in our new focus here, look into that again, or kind of put food recovery up higher in the food waste conversation. I think it'd be great. I really appreciate all you're doing. It's exciting to see this coming back, so to speak, and have this dialogue. So thank you for all the work, and sounds like you have great staff people on it. So I'm excited about it. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited too. That was a great report. Thanks, Scott and friends.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'm looking for, I'm not seeing any other hands. Any questions or comments for Scott and his team? If not, I think we're ready to move on to our environmental health education program. Chris?
Morning, SWAC members. Chris Hawkins here from Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. Hope my audio is coming through okay. It looks like my box is lighting up, so that's a good sign.
You're good. We can hear you.
Thank you. Glad to be here this morning. And I think I'm going to be showing the slides from my computer, so I will find that. And thank you, Amanda, for providing that opportunity. And hopefully you see that now.
Yes, we can.
And hopefully it'll go into slideshow mode. Okay. So we work on household and public education as part of implementing the hazardous waste management plan over at the health department. And I have a couple of my team members with me here today on the SWAC meeting, Jennifer Johnson and Kylie Graber. We have a couple other members who you'll get at our contact slide at the end. But just wanted to give you an overview of what we've been working on and what we will continue to work on this coming year. So as you have heard in the past, we work on this household and public education aspect of the hazardous waste management, and an overall goal there is to reduce toxics in households across the county, trying to reduce the use of hazardous products or products that contain hazardous materials, and ensure that those products that are not reduced are properly used, stored, and handled. And we have several main projects that address this, and you'll hear a little bit more about these as we go through the results of this past year. But we have a Healthy Child Cares project. We do a series of workshops throughout the year that have both home and indoor, as well as gardening and yard kind of outdoor content to them. We also have a new initiative that's been started under the support of the Department of Ecology's local solid waste financial assistance, which is a housing partnerships effort that kind of goes with our Healthy Homes project that works with people to provide better information about how they can clean and take care of things around the house without using toxic chemicals, and to reduce exposures to toxins in the home environment, toxics in the home. We do some retail outreach, so that's putting information out at close to the point of purchase where people are making decisions about what products to purchase, and that really is a good complement to the more in-depth workshops that we offer. And then we are also out at community events and providing public information in a variety of ways. And then we have some special initiatives and efforts that we carry out throughout the year. So just looking back at 2022, similar theme to what you've been hearing from other aspects of recycling and waste reduction. It's kind of rebounding a bit from the COVID intense years preceding this one. We had a lot greater participation in our workshops, and also see an uptick in distribution of our information out in the community. So we did take a virtual approach to delivering our home and garden workshops during 2022 at the outset, and then pivoted partway through the year to offer some in-person workshops, primarily focused on homeowner associations. As the year went on, engaged close to 250 participants in that. And so that mix of different workshop types, I think, was a good way to increase access to the information. A lot of people were able to participate remotely and enjoy those online workshops. And I think people were also grateful to the opportunity to come out for a workshop in their neighborhood. So a key component of those workshops and the housing partnerships effort, which I'll go into.
So I must not know how to.
In a moment. Oh, sorry. Is there a question? No. So a key component of this is doing this pledge that you see depicted here, which is a way for prompting our participants to make a public commitment to engage in a healthier action. And so an example of one of the statements on here that they can indicate their willingness to take part in is, I pledge to take unwanted hazardous products to Hazo House. And the location of Hazo House is in that pledge. So what we do is we let people keep the top half of this pledge to put up at home on their fridge, for example, as a reminder to them that they've made these commitments. It's also, they've made this commitment in public to us as their educators. And that helps to reinforce the desired behavior. And it's one of the ways in social marketing that you can succeed in achieving good behavior change. Another place we deploy this, besides those Healthy Home and Garden workshops, is a housing partnerships workshop effort. Originally, we had intended this to be a training for the housing providers, organizations that we would partner with, who would then go and educate their residents about the same information and encourage them to do a pledge and get a safer home cleaning kit. What we realized is that a lot of those partners were having a difficult time meeting the demand for that alongside other things that they were serving these residents for. So this is very low income people that we're trying to reach with this particular program. And what we've pivoted to is an approach where we actually come in and do the education on site at these housing locations. And we had a good initial response to that revised approach at the end of 2022, and we're continuing that this spring. Another project we had this past year that was a pilot program, was in conjunction with our Healthy Homes program, was a flame retardant reduction project. And I think you heard us talk about this a little bit in our last year's presentations. But we've now come to the end of that pilot project and distributed about 60 vacuums in 2022, and more than that in the overall time frame of this project. And some really great results in terms of behavior change. I'll just share a couple of those. One is that whereas before participating in this program, most participants weren't, well, about half participants were regularly vacuuming. What we found is that after receiving a heap of vacuum as part of this project, close to all of the participants were reporting that they regularly vacuumed and follow. There was also an increase in knowledge where people could basically state that there is a connection between my vacuuming behavior and chemical exposures in my home environment and protecting the community environment. So that went from almost no one saying that they would make that connection between their own vacuuming to about 37% of those participants at follow-up saying that they could make that connection and understand that importance of their behaviors to the environment and to their own health. So that's just a rundown of some of the things in 2022. We also continued our retail point of purchase, and we saw an increase here of about close to 20% in terms of the total number of publications that went out into the community regarding these safer practices and ways to reduce use of hazardous materials and products. That included promoting our common sense gardening, integrated pest management, Grow Smart, Grow Safe, as well as in pharmacies and clinics, safe medicine return. So we have information that goes out about where people can safely dispose of their unwanted medications, and we promote that through a web page on our department site. And we also obviously reinforce that when we're out at community events. So it's not in the store kiosks, but when we're out participating in things like we will be again this year. And then we serve people through technical assistance. We get requests that come in on an information line that we maintain. Reached a good 125 residents with that more intensive technical assistance on these home and garden topics. And we continue outreach through our home and garden newsletter. And that's also seeing an increase in participation. Some of you may have signed up to receive that and hope that you're enjoying the timely content that we provide through that home and garden newsletter. Really quickly moving to work plan. We intend to carry out our Healthy Childcare's trainings, trying to reach 50 participants in the first part of 2023. Those are the childcare providers, and trying to help them understand ways that they can reduce their reliance on hazardous products for that cleaning of the childcare environment, which then benefits a even larger number of children and families, because obviously a lot of kids are served by those childcare facilities. And that's the main point of that project, is to try to reduce the exposures that those young people have as they're developing to those more hazardous products like household bleach, which often is used for the sanitizing and cleaning of that childcare environment, but there are safer alternatives to that and better methods of using it that would reduce exposures. So we intend to reach at least 15 centers in the first part of this year, and hope to continue that throughout the remainder of 2023. We'll be continuing those home and garden workshops and have those already lined up, a number of those this spring. We don't have the full series going on because of our emphasis on the housing partnership effort, which is more targeted to those low-income housing locations. So putting a stronger emphasis on that, at least in the next several months, as we finish out the local solid waste financial assistance project. But we are intending to engage at least another 100 of those very low-income residents in the middle part of this year. And then we'll be also obviously continuing our point of purchase efforts with the garden centers and pharmacies. Part of our effort this spring is also to increase language accessibility of our materials. So we're doing translation to Spanish and potentially other languages of our common sense gardening and other guides. And we'll be continuing to offer that Healthy Homes education and technical assistance in the community. Just an example of that housing partnerships workshop. We just did one recently with St. Francis House, run by Providence St. Peter, but we're also partnering with Low Income Housing Institute to reach residents of their facilities in Thurston County. And we have another workshop lined up with the Reserve in Lacey this spring. That's actually this month. And we'll be looking for other partners and opportunities on that. Currently, we have, I think, a total of 5 partners in that project. So we're trying to get the word out about that. And I've mentioned the Home and Gardens. You can subscribe to that by sending us some healthy homes at co.thurston.wa.us. And finally, we can't do any of this without strong partnerships in the community. Just a couple of examples of that I wanted to call your attention to is a Go Green Lawn Care program that's actually partnership with Thurston County Community Planning and Economic Development. We also partner with Thurston Conservation District for some of those yard and garden related workshops. We are in a network of other environmental educators in the local area here, the ECO network, and the EcoPro statewide system for certified sustainable landscape professionals that we can refer people to. We're very familiar with that system and appreciate the statewide efforts of ecology to keep that going. And we also participate in the Northwest Product Stewardship Council to keep track of what new legislation might be helpful in terms of managing hazardous materials better and improve the overall waste system. And I'm happy to say that Dean is going to be an alternate on that, participating in that steering committee. So we'll have some stronger engagement in that going forward. That rounds out our overall program, and I just wanted to let you know what our team looks like. Currently, it's working on this area of environmental health, education, and outreach. A couple of them on this call, a couple of them are not. Elisa Sparkman coordinates our Healthy Homes project. Kateri Wimsett and Stacey Everett are working together on the Healthy Child Cares, and the information line is there, as well as our website, which now actually needs to be changed because the county has launched its new website. And I wanted to take a quick moment to share that if I could. If I can find that screen, I think that's this. Does that share the website?
It did not.
I think I need to stop the share of that other one. Thanks. So this is our new web page here that shows the home and garden information, as well, the Healthy Homes, as well as yard and garden information. So this is a one-stop page for a lot of our information now, and then has these subsections where you can open it up and it gives a little more detail. Contains most of the information that we had spread across a lot of different pages on our former website. But this is now live and revamped in the new county website format. And I think that'll be a helpful way to connect with the information that we're trying to provide the community about reducing toxic exposures. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Chris. I was just looking for hands and I'm not seeing any. Does anybody have a question or? Oh, there's Delroy. Go ahead, Delroy.
Yes, this, I don't know whether this is the right department that handles it, but I was wondering how promiscuous dumps, car hulks, and a new addition, homeless camps. I mean, what a disaster. And I don't know whether if the health department is dealing with this, but there's some of the most unhealthy situations I've ever seen in my life.
Well, that is a great lead in to actually the solid and hazardous waste program that Patrick heads up, because he does have to deal with that quite a lot. The cleanup of those sites is more his domain than mine. though he or Art could probably address that more thoroughly in terms of what's being done on the homeless camps. Patrick, do you want to?
It looks like Joan has a question too, and then we'll let Patrick get to his presentation and hopefully address that.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and I think we asked this before, Chris, but how do you get the recommendations for the low income homes or the places that you're trying to, serve with all of this good stuff? How do you, I didn't know if your goal was to get 100 more than you have now, or if your goal is just to add.
Yeah, we're aiming to reach 100 in the first half, 100 residents of these low income housing locations, facilities in the first half of this year. It's a target that we're trying to reach for our ecology funds. And we're well on the way to that already. But yes, we do depend on some existing partnerships with our department in terms of housing providers. We get referrals of possible partners from our Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention. So we do have staff that do work closely with Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention, Elisa being an example of that. And she has been instrumental in terms of connecting us with some of those key providers of very low income housing, transitional housing, and the like. So we have some good established partnerships, as I mentioned, with Lehigh, but also Catholic Community Services, Family Support Center, Homes First. What am I forgetting, Jen? So we've got a number already in our partnerships, but we're working on additional partnerships as well. So if you have ideas, please let us know.
Well, I was just wondering if someone could self-refer, or if I knew my neighbor or someone in my neighborhood that was really struggling with. And I think about this because of all those years we handed out, feminine hygiene and cleaning supplies so people could stay healthy and clean in their bodies and their homes. And sometimes in the conversation, I run across someone who says, I think something's happening with my neighbor. The kids aren't clean anymore and the house is a mess. Can you just do an individual referral like that?
You can certainly send them our way. The program that we've been doing is really geared towards involving a whole housing complex. So trying to provide education to multiple residents as a way to just, get that word out to that many more people and benefit that many more people. But there is still an individual component to it of making a pledge and receiving a healthy cleaning kit with that pledge. That is how we are demonstrating our reduction in toxic materials, because those products that we have in that kit are replacing a number of common household products that do involve more toxic components, like a drain cleaner, like a bleach-based sanitizer. So those kinds of things are what we're trying to change behavior around, and so we can do that on an individual basis, but we are trying to work more with larger organizations to get the word out that much further.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hands for Chris. So we do have just about 10 minutes left on our agenda, and I don't want to miss Patrick's presentation, especially because of the question Delroy asked about what's happening with the homeless camps. So Patrick, if you're ready for your presentation on solid and hazardous waste program, and if you could sneak in an answer to Delroy's question, that'd be great.
Can I chip in here?
Sure.
So Patrick, I'm not sure how long you have for your presentation. I don't want to cut you short, and I want you to have a full opportunity. So I want to get you, I'm going to ask you, put the question to you. I mean, we could potentially continue this to the next meeting, but I don't know if that works for you or not, or whether, because I don't want you to feel like you have to, like, that's kind of, because we also have Laura on the agenda still as well. So, but But so
Well-
I'll leave it to you, Patrick. How quickly do you, I mean,
I can shoot through mine pretty quickly. I can address Delroy's comments through the presentation. Unless there's a slew of questions afterwards. In previous years, there really hasn't been a ton. So I'm sure I can get through it and give Laura enough time to be effective.
okay, all right. Just want to make sure that you're comfortable with that. All right, carry on.
Okay, are you guys ready for me to start then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There we go.
Is that working out?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So I'm the fun section of solid and hazardous waste. We're enforcement and regulation and permitting. So,
Can you get it on presentation mode, Patrick?
oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did that already. I'm clicking the button for it. Is it not changing?
It hasn't.
Not yet.
Try the button up above. There you go.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so it's a solid and hazardous waste program. So our solid waste program is focused on permitting of solid waste handling facilities, solid waste enforcement. And then our hazardous waste side is focused on business pollution prevention and regulation. We do some projects that combine some sustainability, recycling, things like that. And we also are involved in our integrated pest management program, which is a lot different, but I'll get into that a little bit at the end. So our solid waste group, we permit 16 solid waste or moderate risk waste facilities, and our moderate risk waste facility would be Hazel House. So all of our, the wharf, the transfer stations, the drop stations over at Rainier and over on Sargent Road, Rochester. We also do Greg's composting facility and some of our scrap metal processing facilities, or junkyards, depending on when they got their initial registration or permit from the county. We also register all the gravel mines in the county, and those also have inspections involved in them each year. So that's what we do as far as permitting work and oversight of those facilities. Solid waste enforcement, excuse me. So the way this differs from the litter control program is the litter control program would be focused on litter, roadside litter or in rights of ways where and as soon as that right of way ends and it becomes personal property or commercial property, agency property, then we would get involved in the notification of the property owner. And ultimately what we do is, so it starts with a complaint. We would get a complaint about a solid waste dump or property that a neighbor complains about dumping on it. And then we would contact the property owner and we would work proactively with the property owner to have them clean it up. So the county doesn't clean it up. County doesn't provide funding for cleanups. We work with the property owner to voluntarily get their property into compliance. Excuse me. When it comes to homeless camps, it is a very difficult situation because we have to work with the property owner. So let's say you own a private property that hasn't been developed and you find out over time that you have an encampment in it and somebody has called to complain about the garbage or materials being disposed of on the property or just accumulating on the property. we would go and do two different things. One, we would reach out to our, excuse me, our homeless program within the county and see if we can connect the people to some services and hopefully get them housed. And at the same time, we would reach out to the property owner, and the property owner would work, work to get their property cleaned up. What happens quite a bit is if the people who are living there don't voluntarily accept services that might be available through the county, and they choose not to leave, then the property owner unfortunately has to go through an eviction process through the court system to get those people evicted, and then they can do the cleanup. This process can take years, especially if it's in a structure where, say, somebody passed away and somebody moves into their structure. If the taxes had been paid up, it can take years for that to go through the court system. So that's one of the very unfortunate problems that we have around encampments and just what the legal process is for a property owner to get the people off the property and then legally clean it up. So
Patrick, I have a quick question about that. Is the process the same if the property is owned by, let's say, a state agency like the Washington State Department of Transportation?
Well, so I don't know all of the legal aspects of it. I know that the State Department of Transportation is doing a right-of-way cleanup operation and has been for approximately a half a year right now. Because those are public safety issues, the process is, I want to say, maybe a little bit more straightforward and streamlined, as opposed to having to go through an eviction because that's not a real property. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just have concerns about the public safety issues when people are camping so close to the freeways. It's challenging.
Right, and you probably have seen in the last half a year some significant cleanup efforts along the I-5 corridor and some of our side streets where DOT actually owns, as opposed to some of the side streets that maybe are owned by city or county.
Can I make a comment about that?
Certainly.
I'm on the Regional Housing Council, and some of the, and I wanted to respond to Renee's question. Some of that, it is true that cleanup has been happening, and there's a partnership with the state in doing that, with getting funds and so forth. But if you are going to evict someone from their place of residence, i.e. their tent, you have to go through the process of offering them and having a place for them to go. And if you're short on places for them to go, or they refuse to go and stay somewhere else, then you are in another little bind there. So that's complicated by, as is being said, by who owns it and what the what the restrictions are, and especially around homelessness and placing people in another safer position.
Thanks for that clarification. And Patrick, if you want to continue.
Sure, and what Joan was saying specifically pertains to city, state, and government agencies on their property. You cannot, a government agency cannot kick a homeless encampment off of their property if there are not shelters available for them to go into. And that's different than private properties.
Got it.
So, okay, so we get approximately, we get well over 100 complaints every single year that we respond to. So in 2022, we had, 113 new complaints come in, which is a little bit more than the year before. We conducted over 443 property inspections in the course of the year, which resulted in about 750,000 pounds of waste being removed from those properties and brought to our transfer station. In addition, about 97 junk vehicles. So Delroy, that also goes to us. We respond to, so our building permitting planning codes address junk vehicles. Our solid waste codes address junk vehicles as both as a violation. So when there's a property that has only solid waste and junk vehicles, then our program will take all of that work and not give any of it over, you know, not have to include a different agency. If there's building permit violations, unpermitted living and junk vehicles, then we'll let our community planning and economic development department deal with it. So we have two different groups that do junk vehicles. If there's a ton of junk vehicles on one property, we'll work together because the affidavit process is pretty arduous. So a couple of our sustainability programs are the used oil collection network that we do with Public Works. So Public Works does all the contracting for the pumping of these stations, and our staff goes out, keeps them clean, monitors them, helps make sure that all the locations want to keep them there. And if they don't, then we try to find new locations to keep that network going. So we have about 25 privately managed locations and half a dozen, well, about 7 other ones that are throughout our community. And last year we collected over 13,000 gallons, which results in almost 100,000 pounds of carbon dioxide diverted if it was just would have been thrown away as hazardous waste. We also have been doing a marina waste collection program where when our business pollution prevention technical assistance went to the marinas, because we want to ensure that all the hazardous materials around boats are being managed properly, and really to try to get people to not manage things in their boat houses or on their boats and have this accumulation over the water. We went and we put out these totes at a few of the local marinas, and they have daily hazardous waste collection available to them. And my staff goes out there and we collect it all. We bring it out to Hazel House and it gets recycled or disposed of properly so that people who have boats have an easy means of getting rid of this stuff right at the marina. So we've collected over 23,000 pounds in the last 11 years. Well, so it's been very successful, and it really doesn't require, you know, we run through these marinas maybe once a month, twice a month in the summer. So it's really doesn't take a lot of resources to accomplish, you know, what we think is a pretty good goal. Our hazardous waste program, which is our business pollution prevention program, runs on a contract with the Department of Ecology. There's about 26 other partners within this pollution prevention assistance program. Most of them are around the Puget Sound area, but it also includes Clark County and Spokane County, and I believe they are wrapping in some folks in the Yakima area. So our goal with this program is to provide technical assistance to businesses. Thurston County has probably about 2,500 businesses that produce or use hazardous material. And our group, our 3 staff people that do it are the only people who regulate all of those businesses in Thurston County. We work with the Department of Ecology and try to coordinate our industry campaigns so that we have the latest information about product substitution, chemical substitution. In fact, one of the great things about this program is they have financial vouchers to promote chemical substitution. One of the programs that we ran a couple years ago, it still overlaps now. They don't really go away as long as businesses still want to be involved. And that was to replace dry cleaning, perchloroethylene dry cleaning machines to water-based machines. And the business, if they do this change out, they can get up to a $10,000 voucher from the Department of Ecology, which is pretty awesome. That's about 25% of the cost of this new machines. And they have to completely get rid of their old machine. They can't use them both. They can't retain it. They can't resell it. They have to actually get rid of it. That we've gotten at least 3 local dry cleaning businesses to switch to water-based through that process. So that's pretty cool. We're currently doing an automotive campaign, and there's a voucher program to get rid of chlorinated degreasers or part washers, and then get a voucher to replace them for a lesser hazardous degreaser. For the last couple of years, I presented that we've been working on a GIS inspection database, and it's finally done. 2.5 years later, we're using it. So now we can put on a map every business that we go to, and then there'll be links where you can access their inspection form. And our goal is to work with the local cities who are moving into their stormwater NPDS. This is their stormwater permit from the Department of Ecology. In Thurston County, I believe there's at least 4, and maybe Yelm will be the 5th city that will have to have this phase 2 stormwater permit. And our goal is to try to make our inspections available to them through that online portal, so that they, if it's a business that they would have scheduled to inspect that year, they could just download ours and submit that for them. So that could be very useful to some of the cities who are really getting into this for the first time. Our integrated pest management, I'm going to have to go through this super quick because this is very involved, but I'll just kind of brush on it in case somebody has questions. But so our county has an integrated pest management policy, and within that, it has environmental health program, has to do reviews of the toxicity of any pesticide that the county chooses to use. And so they all get reviewed for their toxicological and other hazards associated with those chemicals. They get ranked, and then that ranking system gets utilized to help the Board of County Commissioners make decisions on county's use of pesticides. And then that also has been used to be the background for the GrowSmart GrowSafe website. And so what GrowSmart GrowSafe does is takes those toxicological reviews and matches the active ingredients to the products that are registered in the state of Washington. And so you can go to this GrowSmart GrowSafe website, and you can look up any product that's registered in the state of Washington for any sort of control, and they're sorted by their hazards. So from lowest hazard to high hazard. And they're searchable, so that, like, if you want to kill dandelions, you just go into the weed control section, you could type in dandelions, and it will filter all of the pesticides that have dandelions on their label, and it will sort them from least toxic to most toxic or most hazardous. We currently have 5 of us in our program. Mark and Maria are our solid waste permitters and enforcement people. Renee and Trent both got hired in 2022 in July, and so they're running our hazardous waste program right now. Our hotline number is there, and as Chris said, if you follow that link to our website, hopefully you'll get moved to the new website.
Awesome. Any questions for Patrick? You did a great job of doing that very quickly, Patrick.
Yes, and thank you for the input. And I know it's a real problem out there.
Yeah,
And
it's hard for sure. I'd like to wrap up our agenda today. And if folks need to leave, we're not going to be taking votes on anything. And I understand if you have other commitments you need to get to. But we'd like to be able to get through the agenda today, if you can stay with us. And with that, Laura, what's going on with ecology?
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you. And I will be as quick as I can since we're a little behind time here. I wanted to just make everybody aware that Ecology was able to work with our Assistant Attorney General and make a little bit of a change with the compost procurement ordinance for cities and counties that were required, mainly cities. While it was not a big change, it did eliminate a lot of cities from having to have CPOs that previously did. I don't know that that impacts Thurston County, but the exempt cities that don't require CPOs are Bucota, Rainier, Tenino, and Yelm. So the other cities, of course, just with population hit the threshold and need to have it. So I just wanted to update you on that in case that is a change for any of the cities, and let you know that there are some counties where that, or cities where that change around the state is making a big difference for them. So we were glad to be able to get that, even though it was kind of a difficult timing. And then Ecology is tracking the current legislation that's happening in the legislature. I don't have a report on that because, of course, they haven't decided exactly what they're going to do. So I don't like to get ahead of that too much. You can go look. There are locations where you can go and look at what's going on with the RAP bill and several of the other things that impact solid waste. Once we get past the approvals of those, we'll be able to talk a little more effectively about what they are and what they mean for you. So keep tuned in for that. And then we do have a state litter campaign that's happening. There was some conversation about litter in Thurston County, and I just wanted to mention that any of the cities or any place that wants to utilize those materials, they are available, and I can send them on to you, and you're welcome to use them as well. And then lastly, we just have published our first organics management newsletter through Ecology, and you can sign up to receive that. This first one was about the CPO and those changes, and links to those pieces of information, and the reporting piece of that too, which is what a lot of questions we're getting are now. So if you're interested in that, I'm happy to provide that information for getting hooked up for that newsletter that will be coming out about all the Bill, House Bill 1799, now called the Organics Management Law stuff. So that's it for me. I really appreciate the opportunity to hear all the great presentations and participate today. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. And the legislature is hitting some of their critical deadlines right now. And so things are going to be changing over the next week or so. So it'll be good to know what we're still dealing with after those deadlines are met. I think that takes us right up to Jeff. Are you ready, Jeff?
I am. I'm going to keep it super quick, and you'll be getting probably a little bit more than I'm going to talk about in the, as an email. I'll have some stuff written up for you, but I was going to mention the legislative update is we receive a kind of briefing document every week from the WACSWM, or for Washington State Association of Counties, on the solid waste bills, and I plan to send out with the minutes here. It basically has a rundown of all the solid waste related bills, what essentially who's sponsoring, kind of a little brief description, so you can see what's out there. And has been mentioned, and then as you mentioned, is that I think it's next Wednesday is when everything has to be out of one side and over to the other. So if it hasn't gotten through with the one side, then basically it's dead. So
until next year.
Until that, yeah, exactly. Dead for right now. So my understanding is it looks like we have 5 bills that will probably make it through out of the, I think around 10 or 12 that are solid waste related. But we'll send that out so you can just kind of get an update on what those bills are. I did one. I see she's still here. Our newest education outreach coordinator, Dan. Where did she go? Danielle was here. Did she just jump off?
She's still here.
Okay, good. Yeah, Danielle Winsky. I just wanted to introduce her to y'all. She started on February 16th, so very new and to us. But I don't know if you just want to give us a little quickie about your background.
Yeah, hi, everybody. It's really nice to be here and to get started. And I came from the Building Industry Association of Washington as their digital communications manager. And so this is going to be a really exciting adventure for me to be more in the community and doing what I'm really passionate about, which is helping people understand what's going on and things that they can do to improve not only what they're doing, but as a community as a whole. So I'm just really excited to get started and to see what kind of impact I can make on our local people.
We're very excited to have her. So next up is styrofoam recycling. As I mentioned last month, is DART is pulling out of their Tumwater facility. Yes, so basically today is our last pickup by DART. So as of yesterday, we had cut off acceptance at the work for styrofoam for recycling. So they're picking up everything we have, and so it's suspended for the time being. We're looking at other options. We'll hopefully be able to come up with something eventually, but for right now, we're not accepting it at our facility anymore. And I think there's a couple other things that are not as important. You'll get them in a written form, but for the sake of time, let's go ahead and wrap that up. Any questions on any of that? Great.
We do have a comment from Chris in chat about the WRAP Act, which is Packaging and Plastic Product Stewardship Bill. Appears to be still moving. So that's a good update. Thanks, Chris, for sharing that.
Yeah, that is it's probably been the most active of all the bills as far as from the solid waste side. It has the packaging, plastic, as well as that. It also includes the potential bottle bill aspect as well.
Okay. Good to know. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Any questions for Jeff? I don't see any hands. I think people are ready to roll. So with that, I will call this meeting adjourned. And thanks for joining us today, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it.
See everybody later.
Good presentations.
Yeah, excellent.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
They were very good.
Yeah, very informative. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next month.
Gotcha.
See you, everybody.